Today I'm talking with Lilah Bross, who's a good friend and a real estate agent in my hometown office of Arlington, Virginia. Thank you so much for joining us today here, Lilah.
Hi, Eddie. Good to see you.
Great to see you. So our relationship predates working together because you remember where we met?
I do, actually. We met when our daughters were just little, sweet, innocent, I think 4 years old.
Yes.
We were at the gym and they were both going to the kids club together. So they met first. They became friends. I think it was every Saturday I would go to the gym. I would take my daughter, who was 4 at the time, and you and Jenny would take Maggie and Isaac to the gym.
Yep.
And I think Jenny we would take a Zumba class together too. I mean, not together, but we were both in the class.
Yes.
So
that's exactly it.
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes Jenny and I would trade off in terms of picking Maggie and Isaac up, and Isaac might even been too small to go at the time. Maybe he might have been below the age where we felt comfortable leaving him there. But I remember Maggie was so excited about Pearl. And then somehow one day we started talking about real estate, and then it became obvious to me that you were a real estate agent as well, in your previous location, right?
That's right. Yep. I actually at that time was not in real estate, so I started in real estate in 2005, and then when my daughter was born, I took time off. So I remember when I met you. So I took time off from real estate to raise her, and then I took a job in the medical field. So at that time when I met you, I was working in the medical field, and I remember, you saying you were in real estate and seeing you on the phone quite a bit. And I remember thinking, man, I miss real estate so much. So I think it's kind of funny just thinking about that. And it wasn't until a couple of years later that I actually got back into real estate. But yeah.
Yeah, and those were tough years because we're talking, somewhere probably 2012, 2013. So we're just kind of coming out of the Great Recession. But I remember just how much of a relief going to Gold's Gym on Saturday and Sunday for me. That was like the one time I'd get an hour sort of to myself. You drop the kids off at the kids club, and then I'd still nervously like walk past it a couple times, between sets, just to make sure they were still there.
Oh, I did the same thing.
Oh, and then another funny real estate based story is when Maggie went to have her first play date with Pearl. I remember I dropped her off, and I'm pulling up. I'm like, oh, she lives in this building. And of course, immediately being a real estate agent in Arlington, my mind was like, oh, I wonder what unit she lives in. And then we went up. I'm like, oh, you've got the best. I probably said it to you. You've got the best unit. This is like pound for pound, best price per square foot in Arlington.
Right.
Location's key. So yeah, it's all coming back. It's all coming back to me.
Yeah. And it's funny because I sell in that building so much now. I don't own my unit in that building anymore, but that floor plan is so easy. It's like, I shouldn't say easy for me to sell, but I just think it's such a good floor plan that I'm always like, so I agree with you.
You sell what you believe in, and there's a lot to believe in. Yeah, you believe in it. I lived in it, and that just exudes. But I want to talk about the dagger that happened the one day. So one day I'm talking to my wife, and she's like, oh yeah, Lilah is working for a different real estate company. And I'm not going to mention names, but it rhymes with Beller Williams. And I was like, oh my Lord, and I just thought to myself, Eddie, how did you not stay in touch with Lilah to the point where she would join? So I'm sure I immediately created some type of plan where our paths would cross, like you would if you heard through the grapevine that somebody was looking
100%.
to sell their house.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, hey, how you doing, Lilah? And then I think it was maybe about a year, and then you made a great decision. You came to Redwood.
I did. Yes. It was. Yeah. It's funny because I was kind of. I think it was perfect. I think it was fate, honestly, because like you said, I started my career there. Because there was another real estate agent in my life. Sorry to tell you, but that helped me purchase that condo. And so I went there, but then it was like I was there for a year and I was ready for a change. So then when we talked about Redwood, I was like, yes, it was perfect. I think it was destined and a very good choice, obviously, that I made. I'm very glad that I made that decision to join Redwood at that time. So that was, I think, was that 20, that was 2019, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it feels like, yeah, about 2019 or so.
right.
Okay, so let's talk about, though, you're in Arlington. You're naturally just meeting people, and our kids
Hmm.
are at a great age to meet other parents that might be moving. It's a great kind of move up age, that elementary school, those elementary school years. So, how did your first deal come together? Because Arlington is not an easy city to just break into the real estate scene in. So, tell me how the first transaction started coming together.
I think my very first deal was a friend that had just met and I had known for a couple years in the area. But the majority of my first transactions were from the job that I had done in between, my first career in real estate in Florida and then moving to the DMV. I took a job in the medical field. So I was working in several of the hospitals in the area, all over Northern Virginia, DC, and even sometimes in Maryland. So I had made a lot of good friendships at those hospitals with all like the nurses and the doctors and everything. So when I got my license, which was in 2017, I started to transition into real estate, and it was perfect because all of these people who I had worked with, um, you know, they knew me, they knew my work ethic and my professionalism. So it was, I was able to they hired me as their agent, thankfully, because then I was able to transition into real estate, and which I did a little bit slowly. I actually went to a per diem and then, was able to build up my real estate business and primarily from all of my contacts at the hospitals. So,
Yeah, so that's fascinating to me because is it awkward at first to bring up to someone like, hey, I know you see me uh, 40 plus hours a week here in the hospital, but my real passion is my second job, real estate. And when I get really good at real estate, you're not going to see me here
yeah.
anymore. So would you like to buy a home with me? Is that sort of how it came up? Like, how do you artfully bring up the subject?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of my friends knew that I was in real estate prior, so that helped a bit.
Oh,
And then, they also understood, even though I loved everyone I worked with, and I honestly loved the medical field. It was, we were all in it together, and we were all, we all understood what it meant to be on call and get called in on a Saturday night at, 2 a.m. in the middle of a snowstorm. So I think that, they understood that I had this desire to get back into real estate, even though, I love patient care and all of that. But yeah, so it felt pretty natural. I think it wasn't too bad. They were all, I think I had a lot of people like rooting for me, I think, and that were supporting me when I was, yeah, when I had the dream. I know there was some people that were like, maybe didn't think I could do it, but
well, you definitely proved them wrong. And so when I think of Lilah Bross, I think of consistency. It would be the word that comes to mind to describe you, especially
thank
as it
you.
as it pertains to video. Like, I feel like you're so consistent, like with your stories. Like, as I'm looking through my stories on Instagram, which I do more than I should, uh, I just feel like you're always coming up with artful, the right mix of real estate. You're touring a home, and then also identifying yourself as, being in Arlington, being in the DMV.
Hey there, happy Monday. So I was sent this graph by a lender and I thought I would share it with you. It's really interesting. It shows the change in home value after 10 years of ownership. So that's holding it for 10 years. They looked at all the data, they took the median average, all that. This graph starts at 1942. Okay, so my real estate tip for the day: get yourself a lender that will do a pre-underwriting for you.
Do you script out your week, like what you're going to talk about every day, or is it just it naturally the moment occurs and you're just talking into the camera?
Well, I have to say, Natalie, this our social media expert in the office, she has given me a lot of encouragement and, you know, I think inspiration, and just, even though like I see her emails come through with different social media classes and ideas, and that always kind of reminds me and inspires me. So that's been really helpful. And now I'm doing a coaching program with her, which has been really great in helping me to stay consistent. So things like that. And then also seeing other agents in our office doing it and being successful. I think that also was really helpful for keeping me consistent. And then as far as like where I get my content from, I honestly, I really just kind of usually I try to kind of schedule like 15 minutes a day to do something on social media. And it doesn't always happen, but it helps me to stay more consistent when I kind of schedule it in. Even if even sometimes if I just have 5 minutes, in between appointments or something, try to do something. Sometimes I spend more time.
This is definitely not an agreed upon question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. What is the worst shoot you've ever done? Like just yourself and a camera, just trying to do a story for the given day. Can you think of a time where it just like you could not get the words out? Maybe you were being too hard on yourself?
Definitely. There's definitely plenty of videos that have not made it,
Yeah.
in front. Yeah. So definitely sometimes I do a couple takes and, things like that. And sometimes, some days I'm like, it's just not happening today, for whatever reason. So,
and you just have to scrap it. Yeah. I remember, Natalie's typically on the other end of this. So sometimes she witnesses it. Sometimes I'm doing it myself, but she's texting me like, "Hey, where are the reels?" I'm like, "I'm getting to it," and then I've got plans. And so I'm like, all right, 10 minutes ago, I'm just going to bust out these reels. And then that's when they never come together. And before you know it, my vein is just popping out. And then
yeah.
the reels are terrible. They never get to see. And the irony is the first one probably looked fine, but we can just be so picky on ourselves.
Definitely.
So I want to pivot a little bit and talk about farming. So I know that first, the first building that you lived in Arlington, that I'm a big fan of as well. All these years later, you've sold your unit, but you like, how did you stay in touch, and like what works for you to be a dominant force in that building?
When I started in real estate, I was living in that building. So I really focused on, building up my business in that building while I was there. I even did an event once, which was like a week or two before COVID. Everything kind of shut down, but I got it in. And that event alone, I think people remembered that. People remembered that I invited the whole building and had kind of like this little, little evening of wine and cheese for everybody in the building, and, introduced myself as a real estate agent.
What lucky timing.
Yeah. And I think people probably remembered it too, because it was like the last thing, a lot of people did like socially before everything shut down. So that really kicked off quite a bit of business. And then since then, so I did get a lot of business in the building through living there. And then I sold my unit in 2021. But I have since continued, with postcards to the building once a month, which has actually been really, really effective as far as like continuing to get business in the building.
Did you send a sold by Lilah postcard to the building after your own unit sold?
Yeah. So what I do with my postcards is I've just I focused I on my postcard I put all of the properties that I've sold in the building, which
Hmm.
I think can be something that's interesting to people that live there. So I think that's helped because they see, and I also I part of my branding is that I really put time and energy and focus into the preparation of a listing before it goes on the market, from staging and painting or any contractor handyman type of things that have to be done. So I've really focused on that. So I think that maybe that keeps some people from throw it in the trash, and they actually want to look at it and see, since they live in the building. So
It makes an impression on people, right? There's really three reasons that people are going to call you to list their home. Number one, they know you, or referred to you by someone they trust. They know of you, and this is where I think your postcards come in. They know of you, they know who you are, and they
mm-hmm.
recognize you as an expert. And so when you can show someone, I've sold this many units in your building, it just means a lot more than a just listed, or a Thanksgiving turkey recipe. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm a big proponent of that. I think in the United States we're so busy, and everybody thinks, this is my biggest asset I'm putting on the market. I've done like no research, but I get this postcard and I know that Lilah, has sold the Browns house, the Thompsons condo, and certainly they must have put more thought into it. So they call Lilah, knowing that somewhere along the line, people have done the research and picked you, and you rewarded them by selling the house. If you're wondering what the third reason is, the third reason tends to be, Lilah has this condo listed, and then someone who owns a home to sell ends up calling them. So it's kind of like the convenience way. That's what I find the three pathways to listings. Okay, so you mentioned branding. So you're remarkably consistent on your video. You're consistent with how you prep listings, and it sounds like that is kind of, you mentioned that's how your brand comes together. Are you consciously consistent with your brand, like when you are in front of the camera, or you're planning a client appreciation party, or a party for a geofarm? Do you think, all right, I'm Lilah Bross, this is how I present myself, or does it just come naturally?
I think I probably should be more intentional about my branding, because I don't think I have been super conscious of it. Hopefully it is just coming
Hmm.
across authentically, but because I definitely do have my own beliefs about the best way to sell real estate. So, and I think that, um, like I said, just really putting most of the energy, I shouldn't say most of it, but plenty of energy and time into the preparation of listings. So, um, that, and then just showing up as a professional and showing up prepared, and you know really trying to understand and be up to date with what's going on in the market and with interest rates, and to really be an expert in the area. Um, but I probably should spend more time and be more.
Well, I think you're nailing it. You're nailing enough that I thought to ask you about it. And this lends into the final thing I want to talk about, which is the luxury market. So, do you find, is serving a luxury client, listing a luxury property, uh, do you have to approach it differently than you would a lower priced home?
Well, I think that one thing I try to do, just in my business overall, is I try to consciously think of every listing as a luxury listing, even if it's a $400,000 condo that wouldn't be considered luxury. I try to present it to the market as if I had a multi-million dollar home. So when it comes to the preparation and the photography and the videography, I'm really, trying to focus on treating it as a luxury listing, so that, uh, so I think that's what I want my brand to be. That's how I want to be, my branding to feel. So,
And I think, over and over again, I talk to agents that thrive in luxury space, and they say, the key in this space is people want to be treated normally, right? Yes, it could be, a couple $1 million home, but they want to be treated, um, professionally, but they want to be, that this is not an act. It's authenticity. So I had to goof up one word. So speaking of luxury, you showed a really cool property the other day in Georgetown. Tell me about that.
Yes. So I actually had the privilege of showing a home that was previously owned by Jackie Kennedy. And so the home was listed for $19.5 million. And it is actually three homes that have been combined. So I showed this home. I actually showed it to my client three times. And so just to give you an idea of how large this home is, it took about 2 hours each time I showed it to go through the home. So I spent a lot of time there, but it's over 15,000 square feet, and there's so much history in this home and so many interesting rooms, which is why it really took time, to get through it.
Yeah, what an experience. That's why there's so many moments, being in DC like we are, that you're walking around and those are just like the pinch me moments, So that's really cool.
It was very cool. Yeah, there was a lot of there was just a lot of history there, and actually it went to an auction, so my client was involved in the auction as well. So I got to experience what that's like.
Did they have a paddle?
Yeah, so it's all done, you're on a phone call, and it's all kind of, you're on a phone. So I was on a conference line, and you're also looking at your computer screen so you can see it's all done live. But so there's a paddle, but it's, on the keyboard basically. But it was interesting because there was 3 bidders total in the auction, and 3 or 4. But the winning bidder, he just was bidding up by $1 million at a time, each time. So it was like he was going to win, the auction in the end. It was clear because that's not normally how auctions go. They're usually very incremental increases, but so that was really interesting. And yeah, it was, even though, my client didn't get the property, it was an interesting experience. And I learned a lot, and yeah.
Was it hard to work with your client's mindset after that, after they came so close to owning such a property?
It was a big disappointment, but it was also, he knew that he had a certain amount that he was looking to pay, and he knew that it did not. And we talked through, different options and figured out what, together what would make this sense for him to pay the top because of what he wanted to do with the property and what he wanted to renovate. So at the same time, it was like, he had his limit that he wanted to pay. So
in a normal house, you're repairing the kitchen. You're like, who the hell put in these kitchen cabinets, And in this case, it could have been Jackie Kennedy.
There was one room where the ceiling, and I don't think Jackie Kennedy did this. I don't know when it was done, but it was done prior to when she lived there. But the ceiling was lined in gold, so like a thin layer of gold. It was beautiful.
Yeah, that's my next place. All right, well, thank you so much, Lilah. This has been great talking with you, and look forward to having you back soon. So, people want to get a hold of you. What's the best way?
So the best way to get a hold of me is probably my Instagram. That's probably the thing I'm most active on, honestly. Yeah, so we'll put it in the description, right?
Yep, we'll put it here. All right, thank you, Lilah. If you like videos, you want more like this, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Tell us if you have any questions for Lilah, favorite thing she said, put that in the comments, and see you again soon. Thanks.